Good morning, everybody. My name is Haroun Risa. As a writer, you aren't alone when at times you'll be staring at a screen for a long time and you can't continue writing a single page or a single chapter of your project. A good number of Kenyan authors suffer from this to the point where they even neglect their projects and they leave their projects unfinished. This is writer's block. Writer's block is the phenomenon whereby you end up feeling stuck to the point where you cannot write anything or continue a sentence or a paragraph in a project, in a book. Most times in Kenya, from what I have found out upon doing many discussions with authors, is that writer's block is something which affects them to the point where they cannot continue with their projects anymore. And a good number of them even neglect their projects. They give up on their projects. And this is something that even continues to affect them in their lives. Some of the main issues which actually contribute to writer's block include apathy, anger, self-doubt, and even anxiety. Some writers may find themselves in self-doubt as they create their books. And you'll find some other writers have fear of their work being compared to the works of other writers, which explains why writer's block is something which can affect many writers globally. An important aspect of writing is the time pressure you give yourself, the deadline that you create for yourself when you are creating a project. Deadlines are excellent for improving focus on whatever it is that you are creating. And the time pressure that your deadline gives you is a great way to stay consistent in matters concerning your writing. This is something that's going to make sure you finish your project in time, thus dealing with writer's block. An important way to get rid of writer's block is to keep yourself busy with something else, like, for example, chores around the house. Keeping yourself busy and refreshing your mind while taking a break from the writing process so that when you're coming back, you're looking at your project from a fresh eye. Another way of dealing with this is taking a walk around the neighborhood or returning to look at your work after some hours. You're returning to look at this with your fresh eye, and this is something that's going to contribute to discovering errors that you may have previously neglected, errors that you may not have seen before. This is a method which helps anyone to notice any errors previously unnoticed in your work. Another way of getting rid of writer's block is to write without second-guessing anything. You see, you start without pausing to have any worries about formatting and editing or sentence structure, grammar, or whether what you're saying makes sense to the readers. Free writing is an excellent method of dealing with writer's block. You can also set a timer for yourself when you're writing a project, around 30 minutes per day at most, and then you decide in that time frame whether you're going to be free writing or you're going to be working on a chapter or two. You do not stop until you hear that timer has come to an end. Then after that timer has come to an end, then you can do discussions with other people, and you can also show some of the individuals who are interested in some of the things that you have written about. They can also point out some of the errors that you may not have seen while doing free writing. Make sure that you have created a time schedule when you're creating a chapter or two on a daily basis. You make sure you create a time schedule for yourself, because this is also a great way to improve focus. And this is something that I would like Kenyan authors to understand and take up, because from what I've seen, a lot of Kenyan authors, upon suffering from writer's block, will neglect their work and they won't even continue with anything. And there are so many writers around here who have a lot of unfinished projects. And it doesn't matter whether it's fiction or non-fiction, but a lot of these projects are left unfinished because a lot of Kenyan authors haven't had the strength to deal with writer's block. That's why I would like to advise a lot of Kenyan authors out here that there are so many ways to improve focus, thus creating and finishing a lot of the projects that you may have started out there. Well, in my case, there are times that I have had writer's block, and these were mostly times when I was creating the first and the second novel, because a lot of times I would look at the project and I would actually ask myself, what next? A lot of times with matters concerning writer's block, you're asking yourself, what next? Because there's really this challenging period whereby you're trying to figure out how you're going to create the next chapter. In my case, when I was dealing with writer's block, I would normally switch off everything, because most times I was writing on phone. So I would switch off everything from there, and I would just look at other things. I would just read something else out there or just listen to music. These are things that actually helped a lot with dealing with writer's block, because I would observe something from around my own world. I would observe something, and then I would transcribe that. What I've observed is something I would write down first. Then I would see whether that goes hand in hand with my story. If it does, I include it in the chapter. It's not writing for the sake of writing. With matters concerning free writing, that's your first draft, and you have that permission of your first draft not to be formatted or edited, because you're actually writing down all the thoughts that you have concerning your plot structure. So free writing is something that you start with your first draft, but once you're completely finished, once you're absolutely sure that you've come to the end of your project, that's when proofreading and editing takes over. And that's when the quality of things like page layout and paragraph spacing and everything, and even grammar, that's when all these things start becoming a lot more important, because that's when you're doing the formatting for the final project. Normally when I'm writing a novel, I would do like the first draft would be on phone. I would write as if I'm writing a diary entry. Then after doing that diary entry like draft, that's when I would actually convert that into a chapter. When I'm converting it into the chapter, that's the proofreading and editing part. But most times it would be two. It would be 2 times, then the final part is the final project itself. But most times it's 2.